is August 12th. I'm really grateful to be here and welcome to Stand Up Leadership. This is a short session, as always. The purpose of us being here, if you're first time here, Stand Up Leadership sessions or quickly stand up sessions for every week for you to get a kind of a weekly insight into how to effectively lead yourself, because it all starts with you. And today we're going to dive into a powerful topic of advanced decision making. And what does it really mean? You know, Napoleon Hill said he researched 500 and one of the most successful people at his time. And he concluded from his study and research that successful people make decisions always quickly, and they change them very often, while failures and people who and leaders who tend to fail make decisions very slowly and change them very often. And so that's one of the key elements here today is decision, and how do you make them? And so one question you want to ask yourself is, what is the decision that you are keeping right now open, that you already know you need to be making? You want to ask yourself that. And you know, there's a difference between decision versus indecision. Indecision is not actually neutral. Some people think it is, but it is not. And the thing with indecision, it creates internal conflict, right? Because when you don't decide, you're still making a choice, but you're choosing to keep the situation open. And so what happens, there's a word called ambivalence in English dictionary that describes that a person has similar feelings, different feelings to the same objective. So internally, they go trying to pull two different directions, and it's not a very healthy place to be in. And so this is what the indecision really, or even procrastination, this is what it really does to you. It's like poison. It's poison. It's really diluting everything inside you, and it doesn't deserve you. And so when you don't decide, you're still making a choice not to decide. And decision in itself starts to create order because you know where you're going. Indecision in itself creates internal conflict, like I said. And so two competing positions at the same time consume valuable mental energy that you could use for something else. And so we've all been in a place where we have conflicting thoughts towards the same objective. We think, should we stay or should we leave? Should we hire or not hire? Should we confront? Should we avoid? Should we commit to, or should we keep our options open? Right? And your indecision doesn't stay inside your head. It does not. It becomes uncertainty for the people who follow you. It becomes delayed execution in your leadership, mixed priorities, and also lost momentum. And so your uncertainty really becomes everyone else's uncertainty because you're the leader. And people don't follow what you do, they follow who you are. They follow who you are. So question for you today, by the way, if you're just checking in, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. And if you can hear me, good, I hope you do, because I've been talking for 5 minutes. But what decision have you been thinking about far too long? What is the one decision that you haven't? And be brutally honest with yourself. What is the decision that you haven't been making, that you know you should be making? It can be professional, it can be personal, but there is one decision. There might be more, but at least one that you know you should have been making. And so it's fear of the consequences of deciding, right? A lot of people say false evidence appearing real is fear, right? And a lot of times we have a false perception of what the situation is. And it commonly disguises itself that I need more information, for example. I see that a lot. Or it's not the right time right now. Or I need to speak to more people to get a different perspective. Or let's see what happens. That is absolutely ridiculous. And for example, we don't have the resources, or I don't have the resources, or I need to figure out how first. These are all intellectual. And you know, Napoleon Hill said, successful people develop the habit of making decisions promptly and changing them very rarely. So you need to be in a place where you understand the difference between decisiveness and recklessness, because they are not equal. Decisiveness does not equal recklessness, because you still need good thinking. But there's a point where additional analysis will actually stop improving the decisions and starts actually protecting you from commitment. Think about it. Because if you continue and analyze, and what happens with people who overanalyze is the more questions they have will lead to more questions, that will lead to more questions, and they're going to be in this continual loop of not deciding, of indecision, because they're afraid of whatever reason. So here's the thing. There is a point where that additional analysis, sometimes it's important, get me right. You need to do your due diligence, you need to do your research, but you shouldn't get lost in it, right? And so ask yourself the question when you go to that place, because if you're an analytical person, there's nothing wrong with that, but ask yourself, am I gathering information or am I actually avoiding commitment? Am I gathering information or avoiding commitment? Because if you are not clear on that, most likely it's the first one. And that's a great leadership question for yourself. So you got to really decide, first of all, one key principle from decision making is decide right where you are with whatever you've got. And most people reverse this and they say, when I have the resources or the time or the right people, or if I feel right, I will decide. No, the principles decide, and then you will acquire the resources. Then you will figure out the how. Because now it's the only place you have. You don't have tomorrow, and yesterday is gone. Right? And so the principle is you will acquire resources when you make the decision. So now is the important nuance. This doesn't mean ignoring reality. I want to really be clear on that, because you have to be aware of where you are, right? But this means don't confuse the constraint with the decision. You can say we don't have the money yet. That's a fact. But we therefore cannot pursue this. That's a decision. But that is not the truth. You can pursue it, but your decision is that you will not, or maybe you will. So these are very different examples, and here's a great example from real life. President Kennedy, back then, didn't really know how America would get to the moon. And he decided where they were going. He decided we will be on the moon by the end of the decade. And the organization then had to solve how we will get there. But he made a decision first as a leader. And so don't demand a certainty in your life or in your leadership before you commit to anything. There will be no certainty before commitment. Commitment is what creates certainty. So what is it that you need to do in order to create certainty? You need to commit. You need to decide with where you are with whatever you've got. And sometimes the decision creates the conditions for the solution. It moves everything forward because you have been avoiding moving forward. A decision is, in essence, is really moving forward. So here's a key question for you. If how wasn't your problem yet, what would you decide today? If how wasn't your problem yet, what would you decide today? You see, vision always, the picture always becomes and received by the individual, is received by the individual always before the how. Vision is always before the how. And Steve Jobs said that you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can always connect them and only connect them by looking backwards. Where you're going, how you're going there will not make sense to you in the beginning. People are really always wanting a new result while continuing to think from their existing mental frameworks. But if you continue to exist and think from an existing mental framework, mentality, you're going to continue to get what you're getting. Einstein said if you keep doing the same thing and expect a different result, it's called insanity. If you keep thinking the same way and expect a different result, you're insane. You are. Because that's not going to move you anywhere. It always starts with a thought. And so you can't really build a different future with constantly allowing your current circumstances, people, environment dictate what you actually believe is possible for you. You can't. It's not possible. And here's an important distinction for you. If you already know exactly how you're going to achieve something, that's a plan. It's not a vision. And so you can have a vision which can lead to a decision, which can lead to now figuring out how, rather than know exactly how, and then we'll decide where you want it. It doesn't work that way. Let's play a game, for example, that you want to build $100 million company. The brain immediately says, how? And that's really useful eventually, but don't let the lack of a complete route kill the destination. Like if you put in Google Maps, you put in the destination, you have a certain view on the app, right? You have certain amount of map that you see right now. That's your next kind of view as far as you can see on the phone. You can zoom out a little bit, but depending on the destination, you might not be able to see all the little milestones in between that you need to go through in order to get to a destination, right? And so that's the thing. You can make a plan now. It won't be perfect, but it will lead you to the next steps, and then become aware of how to get to the next destination. And same with Google. If you Google Maps, you put the destination in, and you see step by step exactly how to do it. So you don't have to figure out the how first. You don't have to map out every single step. You don't have to print out all the instructions. You can, by the way, in Google Maps, but you don't have to print out every turn and crook that you need to take with your car in order for you to get to a destination. You need to follow instructions as you go. Follow instructions as you go, because that will lead you continuing your success. And you can adjust. If there's roadworks, if there are mental blocks, if there's adjustments, you can adjust, right? And so it's not see the evidence first, but really I decide who I'm becoming as a person, as a leader, and what I'm pursuing, and then I will organize myself, my behavior, my mentality, my mindset, my attitude, my self-image around where I'm going. So are you letting today and your present reality really define what's possible tomorrow? Ask yourself, are you letting present reality define tomorrow? Present reality does not define tomorrow. It does not dictate who you are. It simply dictates who you were yesterday, because today is simply a reflection of who you were past weeks, months, maybe even years, but it does not dictate who you can become. So if being wrong for you, for example, means I'm a failure, it doesn't. But if you believe that, you will avoid making decisions. But being wrong actually simply means I made a decision, I learned something, and now I can adjust. You can move forward. There's an important distinction, because bad decision does not mean you are a bad leader. A bad decision can be always corrected. Indecision, on the other hand, cannot. And this is where really mature leadership comes in. You don't need to be certain. You need to be certain in your vision, but you don't need to be certain exactly how you're going to get there. But you need to be knowing that you will. Because you're the leader, and you need to be willing. So first step, you decide, then you act, then you learn along the way with whatever decisions you made, and then you adjust, you course correct when needed. And so I want you to really say this to yourself slowly. The goal isn't to become someone who is always right. It's really to become someone who is willing to decide. You have to be willing to decide. So see, here's advanced decision making. This is the final part, because you have to make some decisions in advance before you know everything. But if you go to a travel, we just took the Google Maps, but if you go on a vacation, you make a decision in advance where you're staying, what flight you're going to take. You make decision in advance in order for you to have a smooth journey to your destination. Same applies to everything in life. If you can make decision in advance, things will take care of themselves. A lot of things will. This is advanced decision making, but you do not have to wait until you're under pressure to decide. So you got to ask yourself, what behavior will I tolerate? And what is it that I won't compromise for? What kind of leader will I be under pressure? What do I say? Where is it that I say no to? And what is my strategic priority? When do I change course? And what do I no longer really choose to participate in? Because if you've already decided, you don't have to negotiate with yourself every single time. That's advanced decision making. Deciding in advance, ahead of time. And what decisions are, ask yourself, what decisions are you keeping open that you already know you need to make? Really key questions here today, because as you take this framework, what is it that I know? Separate facts from the noise. Second step is, what am I waiting for? Is it information? Is it money? Is it permission? Is it certainty? Is it courage? Third step, what would I decide if I don't need to know how yet? This is a breakthrough question for you. And number 4, what is the decision? Say it clearly, not I think, not I might, not I'm considering, instead, I decide. And fifth, because a decision without action is still an intention. It's a fantasy. So here are five core ideas for you to summarize what we talked about today. Indecision is not neutral. It creates internal and organization friction. Second, most information and more information isn't always the answer. Sometimes you're avoiding commitment with getting more information. Third, decide where you are with whatever you've got. Don't wait for the perfect circumstances. Number four, vision comes before complete certainty about the how. Decision creates the commitment. Commitment actually drives your action. And five, decisiveness is your identity. You don't need to always be right, but you need to be willing to decide, you need to be willing to act, learn, and adjust along the way. You don't need to know everything to make a decision, but you need to decide right now with whatever you've got, with where you are, and what you're willing to commit to. Question for you. Thank you for joining us. This was Stand Up Leadership, August 12th. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you next week. And if you haven't already, Eagle Mind starts this Friday. Registration is open. Link is in my feature text soon.